Ladies and
Correct.
gentlemen, I am very excited to be joined by the writer director of the new film, Don't Say Its Name. Don't say its name. His name is Ruben
Don't.
Martel. Ruben, how are you today?
Good, good, good. How are you?
Not too bad at all, thank you. So I want to take you back to my world late last week. What I do Wednesday, Thursday or so, I always check to see what's playing at the theaters and what have you. And I saw Don't Say Its Name was going to be playing here in Ottawa. Now, with all due respect to your publicity team, I guess they
Mhm.
had sent me some information. I had missed it. I apologize. But I saw the movie was going to be playing. I watched the trailer instantly and I was like, this trailer gave me what I will call the heebie-jeebies. I
That's
reached out,
good.
yeah, I reached out to the studio. I got in touch with your amazing publicist who said, Keith, we like you, but dumb dumb, she didn't say that exact word. We sent you the information on this, and I did everything I could to get a copy of this fantastic film. They said, hey, do you want to talk to anybody? I said, absolutely. Bring me the person who gave us the vision of this creation, which is you. So thank you so much for sitting down and talking with me today.
No problem whatsoever.
Okay, so I have to tell you, I really enjoyed this film. And before we jump into it, can you kind of give us the give the wonderful people the background in terms of like the plot of this film?
It's set in a kind of like a locked out reserve, miles and miles away from anybody. And basically pretty much any reserve is like that. It's always off the beaten path. Um, there is a death that they are trying to investigate, but they get inundated with more deaths that may or may not be associated with the original accident. And then hijinks ensues.
Okay. Now, yeah, now we've seen many films in terms of like kind of like a Candy Man and a don't say, you don't want to
Mhm.
say that, certain things and what have you. Now, when
Yeah,
I'm watching this film, so born and raised here in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, but my parts come from Trinidad. So I can
nice.
remember growing up and hearing tales like in folklore and like different legends of different like
Mhm.
characters, if you will, in Trinidadian culture. Was that one of the motivating parts for you in terms of going into like a folklore and bringing that to the forefront as we're as we're constantly evolving indigenous storytelling?
Yeah, I mean, any other time you've watched, like, how many native films have you seen done directed by natives? Like, I had this conversation where I think there were some scholars from UK that said this is the first time a native director has made a native film based on myth. And I was
Mhm.
like, are you sure? And I kind of looked into it, and I think I am. It's one of those things where I feel like that's where the I guess lack of representation is like
Mhm.
in writers or directors being given the opportunity to do something that's kind of like something that a myth, bringing a myth that's totally ingrained in Canadian history. It's everywhere. The Wendigo syndrome. It's been studied by almost every university in Canada, and it's just I for me it's just one of thousands of stories that hasn't been told yet. But I kind of want to in my career be at least be able to do at least five or six of them. And this is the first one though.
Excellent. Now, when I think of some of the different indigenous films that we've seen over the last few years, movies like Indian Horse come to mind. We Were
Mhm.
Children, Night Raiders, movies that really seem to revolve around the horror of the residential school system. What you
Mhm.
have done now, I feel, is you've come and you said, okay, I think people understand that aspect. Now I want you to understand that we can make really great movies, and we're going to start off by scaring the pants off of you. So, in terms of there are so many different stories that can be told. What was it that attracted you to the horror genre?
Actually, when I first started out writing, I always wanted to do love stories. Like I wanted to get into drama, and I think it was just the idea of like how much horror I'm surrounded by like
Mhm.
on a daily basis. Like I actually attended one of the last residential schools, and I'm actually like a sixth generation guy. So the one thing that I always had these conversations with my father and my grandfather, and it was just about how we were survivors. We're not victims. Like we survived this, and being able to work out the traumas of everything that has happened, and kind of like, we need to go in this direction. We need to stop making I guess you call it trauma porn, like where it's like, I don't want somebody to watch my film and feel guilty, because I would have these conversations with friends who would say, I'd watch that movie, but I feel like I'm gonna feel guilty and I'm gonna feel bad. And I just didn't want to make films that way. I just didn't want to make people feel, I wanted to them to think about the plights, but I didn't want them to feel like they were like directly to blame for what had happened. Like it's just, we need to get past that.
No, fair. Fair. Now, there's so many things I can compliment you on in this film. You're just going to love chatting with me, I swear. I love that you've got some really strong female characters in this, like your lead. And I apologize if I mispronounced your name. Sarah, is it Sarah Liz MacArthur playing Stacy? Sarah Liz, thank you. Yeah. Playing Stacy. Just say it what it is. She's a badass. Very impressive, but a very, very, very complex character, because you're also dealing with a character who's dealing with some it seems like some PTSD from her involvement in the war as well. So many things I love about that. I love the fact that you got the strong character, but I also love the fact that you're showing that this character is Indigenous, but also was very much involved in a war representing the country. I wonder if you could take a moment to talk about that character, because I found that character very fascinating.
I think the one thing that I kept on thinking about was in terms of the statistics, sorry, that during World War II, you had a better chance of surviving going to World War II than you did residential school.
Wow.
So I thought I'd go and take that thing and be like, okay, well, how, like, I know I've known a lot of veterans in my time, and I've known them to change. Like there's almost a spark that leaves them. Like there's this level of humanity that they lose going and coming back, and not having that fire within them to kind of lead this normal life where it's not they're not in battle, and they're not surrounded by it anymore, but they're dealing with it. I think with her and with Stacy, she reminded me a lot of Sarah Lee. So I would think about Sarah Lee when I was originally writing the script, and I always had her in mind. It's just that the ability to not hear no, and the ability to keep fighting for the yes, like as an actress or as a producer that she does. And I like it's just with every female Native character, I felt that they were missing that. They were missing, like in traditional times with the Cree, they made the decisions and we just did the actions. Like one thing is the males did the cooking and the cleaning, and they did the decision making because they were in charge of the home. And that's just something that was ingrained in me with my grandma and my mother. And that's what I wanted to start seeing. Like I didn't see any of that in any kind of Native films.
Okay, fair. So obviously this film, this was filmed in Canada, Alberta, I believe. What was the most challenging aspect of the shoot for you guys?
Minus 36 to minus 52.
Okay.
And cameras freezing every 20 minutes. They'd freeze. We'd have to take them in to warm them up. We had 15 days to shoot it. It was the whole thing was a pressure cooker, and it just felt like at every turn it was like, okay, we got to deal with a very limited number of days. This crazy cold. But aside from that, like everybody, like we got an A team. We got the total Alberta A team. Like they were people that worked on Inception, people that are working on Last of Us right now. We just got lucky. Like I got lucky. Like I was happy because like the saying of be the least intelligent person in the room. Mm-hmm. And I kind of felt good because I was the least intelligent person in the room, and everybody's telling me, okay, this is what we need to do. And I'm like, okay, so how do I do that? How do I do that? And they would answer all the questions, and they're all very patient with me. And yeah, it was a very hard learning experience, but it's just something that I had to push through.
Excellent. That's fantastic. The next question I wanted to ask you was, so as this film is getting its release right now, what is your hope for the film in terms of what I'd say first of all, you've got a Canadian film that is being distributed, and a lot of people will say that is already the holy grail. So I would say everything else is kind of like the cherry on top. But what does the
Yeah.
cherry on top look like for you with this film?
Uh, I had this really weird experience. I guess kind of like foreshadow this whole experience that I'm having right now. I was at the point of, I think it was like maybe 5 months before I signed the option for this film. I had this. I went into to 7-Eleven with my son, and I just kind of like, man, I need to just. I have to just give up on this idea of this career and this dream. And we were standing in line, and there was this little boy. He's probably about 5 years old. He comes up to me. He says, "Hey, you're Ruben Martell, right? You're the guy that writes and directs." And I'm like, "Yeah." And then he just cool. And then he just walked away. I think the cherry on top is having more kids say that to me, or having kids come up to me and say, I can do better than that, and I'll be happy with that. And I'd be like, awesome. We have like, I just basically want the next generation to be able to come into this environment and feel safe and feel creative and feel like there's a wake that is being made. Like for me, I always felt like Jeff Barnaby's making the wake for me, like with Rhymes for Young Ghouls and Blood Quantum. And I always wanted to follow that. Like I wanted to follow his example of how he does things like to his the full freedom of his creativity. And that's kind of how I feel like I want to just keep on going. And I want more little ducklings coming back behind me. And that's the cherry on top, is having more kids knowing that this is possible. Because me growing up, I didn't know being a writer or even a director was possible.
And one of the things that I'm finding is that there are so many, as you mentioned, there's so many amazing stories to be told. But I find that here, especially in Canada, it's a very supportive community. And
Mm-hmm.
as your star is growing, you're leaving the ladder so other people can come up it as well. So it's
Yeah.
wonderful to see.
That's the dream. Like that's the one thing. It's like I kind of want to just be that person that's kind of like just helping them on the ladder. Because like I can always write, and I can always direct, and I can always be the I guess I'm really happy with the way things are working for me. But I'd like for more people to explore that, because I feel like we're just making a small, like we're making a huge hole in the Canadian films with Jeff and hopefully myself. And now I just want to see all those other people bring in their stories, because like I've been hit. I'm always being hit up with, "Hey man, I have a great movie for you," and I'm like, "Write it and direct it yourself, man. It's
Yeah.
possible."
Yeah. No, absolutely. That could just be the fact that they just want to collaborate with you. I'm not sure, because they realize
Yeah.
you're a big deal, but that's nice as well. So again, I wish you absolutely nothing but the best with this film. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank
I
you.
always want to be cognizant of people's times, but of course, if you've seen any of these interviews that I've done before, and chances are you haven't, but hopefully you'll become a fan, I always like to end off on a little something I call rapid fire, where I get to ask
Okay.
just some fun questions. And I just want you to come back with the first thing that comes to your mind. I don't want you to spend too much time thinking about it.
Okay.
It's not that intense. Okay. So the first question I always ask is, and I'm going to ask you, is what is your favorite movie of all time? But because that's such a challenging question, I've opened it up to say, if you want to give me like a top three, I'll accept it.
Actually, my favorite movie of all time, Cinderella Man, with
Oh,
Russell
okay.
Crowe. It's
Okay.
just that whole thing of being able to look beyond your hardships and
Okay.
fight for a better life for your family. Like that's always been, every time I feel down, that's the movie I go watch.
Okay.
You
Excellent.
just gotta fight for it, man.
Yeah, 100%.
Hmm.
Okay, since we're talking about, a horror movie, what's the last thing that you saw that scared you?
Uh, I can't think of anything. I think the last time I've been scared was The Exorcist,
Okay.
and that was 36 years ago.
So it's been a while.
It's been a while. It's been a
Yeah.
while because like there's I think that's the holy grail. I mean, every horror film director, I think, wants to scare people, but like it's hard. It really is hard. Like it's like people are so desensitized by everything. Like back in the 90s, people were watching horrific film, like horrific clips on internet, and
Mhm.
now it's kind of cleaned up, and but you still see some pretty horrible things on things is kind of desensitize you from fantasy.
Yeah. I think for myself, I always think of when I think of like different horror movies and that I think to myself in terms of the reality of it happening.
Mhm.
So which is why like a Friday the 13th or like Chucky and the Doll would not
Yeah.
necessarily, get a big reaction the way something else like something from your film might. So okay.
Yeah.
So that would be my answer. Don't say the same. Okay. So moving on. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong. You live in Saskatchewan?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Do the Riders have a chance this year?
Oh man, like that's a thing where it's like you wish, you hope. I mean, I think anybody can say the same thing with, say, the Winnipeg Jets or like Calgary Flames,
Yeah.
Toronto Maple Leafs. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like like when they were talking about why doesn't Hamilton get a, hockey team?
Hmm.
It's because Toronto would want one too.
Yeah.
It's I hope, like, it would be nice if the Riders got there, but I don't think it's been till since '93. Man, that's pretty tough. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. That's a loaded question in Saskatchewan.
Okay. All right. All right. Moving on. Who would you absolutely love to collaborate with it going forward?
Oh man, that's Scott Dickerson. Like, I
Okay.
think that, like, anything that he's done, like he's oh man, yeah, because like just thinking about all the films, I think it would be Scott Dickerson. There's uh the one of the also one of the other actors in my film, Julian Enelope. There's always things like it's always so weird because it's not the people that you would think. There's also another person I worked with on this movie called Super Good, Natalie Krill. She's an actress. Um, there's just for me, it's like I've worked enough sets where I've met like the bigger talent, and I wouldn't want to spend any time around them. Like, it's all an attitude. Like, I think that if you respect everybody on set, then those are the people that I want to work with. Like, people that make you feel safe in creating. Like,
100%. Yeah.
there's not too many bigger actors I'd want to work with. Or
Yeah.
I had
Absolutely.
I had this conversation yesterday with somebody, and it was just, my God, you know what I mean? It's just like a horror story of like, just because you're in the industry doesn't give you any more cordon blanche. Yeah, sorry,
No,
made
no,
me ramble.
no. That's the whole point. It's a chat. This is good.
Okay.
Um, so again, I kind of touched on it earlier, and I didn't mean to gloss over it, but I will say, I mean, I've had the opportunity of speaking with a lot of aspiring and emerging filmmakers, and one of the biggest challenges I find that faces Canadian filmmakers is
Mhm.
distribution. Um, as somebody who now can sit back, hopefully, and enjoy the your hard work and say, okay, my film is being released in theaters as
Mhm.
well as digitally. What sort of advice do you give to emerging filmmakers as they're climbing up that ladder that we spoke about?
I would say never, don't hold the script too close to your chest, because it's going to alternate. Like, for my original screenplay for Don't Say Its Name, it was altered a lot, and but like, I kept as much of the story that I wanted to have. Like, there's a lot of issues that were in it. uh, I would say work don't, like, if you got a first draft, keep on working at it. Like, I would say work until it's like the eighth draft, and then try pass it off as your first draft, and just be like, no, that's how crazy intelligent I am. It just came out like that. That's just how it came out. I'd say, like, and storyboard as much as possible. Like, people can read what you're writing, and they don't interpret the action that you're trying to bring across. So if you have storyboards that you can show people and say, this is exactly what I envision, because that was one of the things where I was like storyboarding like crazy on set. And I would say perseverance. Like I'm 45 and I did my first horror film, and I've been working in the back, I've been working behind the camera for a long time. It's like, don't give up. Like, just don't. Like, it's people. I think it's a hard industry to hear. It's a hard industry to hear yes, and then you hear no a lot more than you hear yes. And you just have to be. You just can't take no for an answer. You just have to keep fighting. It's not something for people that hear no once and say, okay, you just got to keep nailing at it. Because how we got our film, like this film done, was just by chance. My friend Renee Collins, he just sent me a phone call and he said he had his conversation. He said he happened to have a script, and then I was like, yeah, I'll send you it. And then a week later, it was optioned, and the next day I'm signing a contract to direct it. It's just having a story that people want to hear, and if there's no passion behind it and you don't feel that fire for it to live with this story for 2 years, it's going to be hard to sell. I mean, it's one of those things where you have to be the champion of it right along the entire time. Like, you just can't say, okay, well, I'm gonna have an off day. No, I'm gonna cheerlead that thing today until the end of it, like I'm doing now. It's gotta keep going.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Fair enough. I also, on a personal note, want to thank you for making, because you're talking to a guy who goes walking ridiculously early, like 5:30 every morning in the dark, and I wear my headband lamp. So I want to thank you for making headband lamps cool in your movie. That'll help give me some street cred. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
I sincerely appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. I wish you nothing but the best with this movie. Again, I'm really glad that I was able to get a chance to watch it, and that you and I were able to connect. So I was able to thank you personally for your film. I wish you nothing but the best with it, and I'm hoping that our paths cross again. So
Of course.
so I wish you all the best, and you take care.
Awesome, man. Have a great day.